This program contains real and reenacted violent scenes of urban combat. Viewer discretion is advised. An American city is under siege.
We've had some very large shootouts, but this was bigger than any of them.
Still being fired off, they're down.
Two commando-style bank robbers ignite a savage shootout.
These suspects were using AK-47 assault rifles.
Wounded police and civilians are trapped in a war zone.
When I was shot, I wasn't going to lay there and resign myself to death. I was going to fight.
Now, the anatomy of the fiercest gun battle in U.S. police history. Shootout, the North Hollywood bank robbery. February 28, 1997. North Hollywood, located in the heart of the bank robbery capital of the world, Los Angeles. It's a high-stakes heist gone bad. An urban firefight that rivals battles in war-torn Iraq. It's one of the most violent shootouts in American police history. Television cameras on the ground and in the air capture the surreal scene live. Two paramilitary-style gunmen take over a bank using terrorist technology. Donning full body armor and automatic weapons, they charge out of a Bank of America branch in North Hollywood. With brutal and brazen disregard, they fire armor-piercing ammo into police and civilians.
It was an all-out gun battle in the middle of a city street. They were there to kill people, and they didn't care who.
SWAT is being notified, code 3. All officers stay down. Shots are being fired from AK-47. There is an officer down.
This is the first time in the history of the United States that suspects were robbing banks using armor-piercing rounds.
A congested residential area turns into a combat zone. The shootout will end with deaths and dozens of injuries.
And I thought that never to be possible, because no one dies on my watch. And I thought, my God, how many people are we going to lose because of this bank robbery?
The roots of the shootout trace back to 1989. Larry Phillips Jr. meets Emil Matasareanu working out at Gold's Gym in Venice, California. Starving to strike it rich, they pump up for a lawless life. Larry already has a long rap sheet. He orchestrated a few real estate scams and was prosecuted for grand theft. Emil Matasareanu, an immigrant from Romania, is an unsuccessful software consultant.
They actually did train together, not only with weapons, but physical training. And they were both very secretive. They told very little about themselves to anybody.
In October 1993, Glendale, California police pull over Phillips and Matasareanu and discover an arsenal of weapons in their vehicle. After a plea bargain and 3 months in jail, the two gun fanatics petition the court and retrieve their weapons. By 1996, Phillips makes Matasareanu a partner in his next scheme, robbing banks.
I think they found something that they were good at, and this might have been the only thing they were real good at.
In May of 1996, they robbed two Bank of America branches in the San Fernando Valley and seize over $1.5 million. It's all caught on videotape.
They were takeover bandits. They would not pass a note. They wouldn't bother with the tellers. They would walk in, shoot a number of rounds into the ceiling, force everybody to the ground.
They stormed the bank wearing masks and some type of protective armor underneath it, and obtained a large amount of money for a normal bank robbery at that time.
9 months pass before the thugs plot their next heist. The Bank of America in North Hollywood. This particular branch is located at 6600 Laurel Canyon Boulevard, a busy thoroughfare near the 170 freeway. There are two large parking lots on the bank's north and south side. Residential homes run along the back of the bank. Across the street are many commercial businesses and restaurants.
They did some research. They staked out and observed the bank and observed armored car drop-offs and pickups. And they also observed the interior of the bank because they knew exactly where the door was, which was the entrance to behind the counter and into the vaulted areas.
February 28, 1997. The robbers dress to kill. Phillips dons 43 pounds of body armor made of Kevlar, a woven substance which is 5 times stronger than steel. He painstakingly sewed together his body armor, which covers the top of his neck down to his ankles. Matasarantu sloppily made his armor, which doesn't cover his arms and legs. However, he inserts a trauma plate into the front of his Kevlar vest to protect vital organs.
You can't buy that body armor. They made it. That shows a lot of planning.
The most chilling elements of their plan are the weapons. They assemble 3 AK-47s with 100-round ammo drums, 1 M16 fully automatic Bushmaster rifle, an H&K 91 assault rifle, illegally modified to be fully automatic, 2 9mm handguns, and a .38 caliber revolver.
They were familiar with automatic weapons through the books and things that they read.
They also load up with close to 3,000 rounds, including armor-piercing ammo, the kind that can penetrate cars, not to mention bulletproof vests, from 200 yards away. Their strategy? Outgun and out-armor the cops.
They had the firepower and the number of rounds that they put downrange to do extremely devastating damage.
The robbers also wear gloves with stopwatches sewn in them. They got this idea from the film Heat, which features a bank robbery. They will follow the 8-minute rule, the max amount of time spent in the bank. They've determined this is typically how long it takes cops to respond to a robbery. Approximately 8:30 a.m. From their Van Nuys safe house, the bandits head east toward North Hollywood in a white Chevrolet Celebrity.
Emil was the follower, Larry was the leader, right? 2 complete psychos.
Phillips and Matasarantu pull into the Bank of America's north parking lot. While waiting for the bank to open, they both swallow the barbiturate phenobarbital, a muscle relaxant. 9 a.m. Bank of America is open for business. (9:17 a.m.) Officers Lauren Farrell and Martin Perillo just happened to be cruising by. They witness 2 masked men entering the bank. It's a rare but fortuitous moment. They call for backup. Larry Phillips and Emil Matasarantu storm into the bank. Armed with fully automatic AK-47s, they fire numerous rounds at the ceiling and order everyone to the floor.
Definitely a takeover technique, but unlike anything that I'd ever seen. This particular branch had what we call bandit barriers in it, which are glass partitions that go from the counters to the ceilings. With their high-powered weaponry, they were able to shoot open the lock that gained access back there.
Phillips forces the bank manager into the vault to fill their money bag. When he sees only small denomination bills, he releases a burst of automatic fire.
Larry became immediately enraged and yelled out, "Where's the money? Where's the rest of the money? I know you have more money in this bank." And they didn't, because he altered the delivery schedule.
Undaunted, Phillips heads to the bank's ATM machine for more cash.
They tried to get the branch manager to open that ATM. Policies had been changed and the branch manager no longer had access to the ATM cash.
This robbery is far from routine. It will become nothing short of a full-scale military battle.
2 with 3 suspects inside, possible AK-47s are wearing masks and dark clothing.
9:25 a.m. North Hollywood, California. 2 gun-toting maniacs, Larry Phillips and Emil Matasauranu, are violently seizing cash at a Bank of America branch. They're wielding AK-47s, among the deadliest of assault rifles. Outside, Los Angeles police officers from the North Hollywood and surrounding divisions arrive. They set up roadblocks and move civilians out of a potential strike zone.
All officers were securing the perimeter and attempting to keep traffic from coming or going.
15 to 20 officers position themselves around the inner perimeter of the bank, known as the Circle of Fire. One of the officers is James Aborovan, who's been out of the police academy for only 2 months.
All the training was kicking in. I was thinking about policy and procedure, tactics. You're looking for tactical superiority. You're looking around you for structures that will provide cover if there is gunfire.
Officer Zaborovan and his training partner, Stuart Guy, find cover behind a locksmith kiosk located across the street from the bank. They hunker down alongside detectives Tracy Angeles and John Krulak.
Because we were one of the first people to arrive on the location, they were asking for someone to cover the front of the bank, which we elected to do. We thought we had a couple of guys in the bank with nothing but handguns, so we felt pretty secure being across the street behind the kiosk, which is about 50 yards from the bank.
My partner and myself had body armor. Unbeknownst to us at the time, the gunman inside had, AK-47s that our body armor does not stop.
4 shots are being fired from inside the bank. I want 1 unit on the north side, I want a unit on the south side, and I want a unit on the back, if possible.
North Hollywood detectives and officers find cover around the back of the bank.
The strategy in all of these things is to contain the suspects at a location, control the situation, and attempt to take them into custody, whether through negotiations or their absolute surrender.
Officer Martin Whitfield, 6 years on the job, and veteran Sergeant Dean Haynes deploy themselves in the intersection closest to the bank's north door.
Personnel 42 is requesting a unit to safely position themselves in front of the front door.
9:25 a.m. After approximately 8 minutes, the gunmen abandoned the heist with a little over $300,000. They had expected to clear over $750,000, like they had in the previous robberies. Larry Phillips emerges from the bank's north door. Emil Matasauranu exits from the south door. Wearing combat fatigues and clutching AK-47s, they look ready for battle. Phillips eyes police blocking the northwest intersection of Laurel Canyon and Archwood.
I believe Phillips was surprised. He wasn't scared. He saw a police car in the intersection at Laurel Canyon and Archwood. There was Sergeant Dean Haynes and a few civilians. Phillips raised his AK-47 and began firing at the police car.
Bullets penetrate Sergeant Dean Haynes' vehicle, causing it to violently shake. Fluids pour out everywhere.
I don't think they were skilled at firing. They were more or less spray and pray, as they say, shoot at anything that moved, and that's what they were trying to do.
Stay down, rapid automatic fire, they're pouring in the area with fire.
Armor-piercing bullets continue to rip into Sergeant Haynes' black and white. One bullet strikes a male civilian in the chest. A woman suffers an ankle wound. Suddenly, Sergeant Haynes is hit in the left shoulder. Matasauranu sprays fire in all directions. At the same time, Phillips targets the locksmith kiosk directly across the street from the bank. There, detectives John Krulak and Tracy Angelus, along with officers James Zaborovan and Stuart Guy, fire at Phillips, then quickly take cover. When Phillips turns his back, rookie James Zaborovan raises his 12-gauge shotgun and fires.
9 of my shotgun pellets hit Phillips.
Phillips spins around. He unloads on the kiosk.
They opened up on us with a 30-round burst.
I immediately dived behind the key shack and had remembered that the detectives weren't wearing any body armor, and I crawled up on top of them to help shield them. Moments later, 2 of those bullets actually struck me.
2 armor-piercing rounds rip into Zaborovan's lower back and buttocks.
It was like I was on fire. It was a very intense burning sensation.
Tanya Bellard is one of 6 police dispatchers handling the barrage of frantic calls.
The hardest part of that was, for me, was when they kept saying, one officer is down here, one officer is down there. You think, okay, there's one officer, but they kept saying different places. And finally I said, you know, does anyone know how many officers are down?
Any unit know how many officers are down? We have one.
And this guy who was shot, James Zaborovan, he screams, more than one, more than one. I was like, oh my God, they are just dead everywhere.
Phillips runs out of ammo and reloads. Working on sheer adrenaline, wounded Officer Zaborovan and the others attempt to find better cover.
Phillips, he would take turns shooting from car to car. And what we would do, we would run from car to car. And those rounds were coming in one door, out the other. We were being hit by pieces of the car, the glass, and besides being wounded by bullets, we were actually cut and wounded by pieces of the car and asphalt as well.
Detective Krulak receives a gunshot wound in the right ankle.
At first, it felt like somebody just took and hit me in the ankle with a hammer. And with your adrenaline flowing, you're not really thinking about the pain.
Both gunmen continue to spray the perimeter of the bank with deadly fire.
It was actually the loudest weapon fired I've ever heard.
You not only heard it, you felt it. If you've ever been around a jackhammer, you can actually feel the concussion against your chest, and already 150 feet away we could smell it.
Suspect Larry Phillips appears robotic. He's not going down after being shot numerous times.
I knew we were outgunned because we don't have automatic weapons.
The LA police officers try to apply lethal force, but their handguns and shotguns don't have the range or the ability to penetrate the suspect's body armor. The department had lobbied for patrol rifles, but the request was denied. Now they're outgunned in a war zone.
Shots are still being fired to the rear of the bank.
The tide of the firefight has quickly gone hardcore and lethal. The cops need the heavy guns. They need SWAT. 9:25 a.m. 2 psychos just robbed a Bank of America branch in North Hollywood, California. No one knows how many in the bank are dead or wounded. Now the terrorist-like suspects, Larry Phillips and his partner Emil Matasareanu, have exited the bank. Larry's near the north door. Emil is located by the south door. Confronted by police, they ignite a melee using AK-47s and armor-piercing ammo.
We've had some very large shootouts, even within my department, through history, but I knew as this was happening, I knew this was bigger than any of them.
They were a deadly threat. They were shooting at police officers and civilians. And at no time do you say, hey, stop and put down your gun.
But the cops are unprepared for the suspect's high-velocity rounds. 2 civilians and 5 officers are already hit.
L10 SWAT being notified. RA's en route for the officer down. All officers stay down.
SWAT, the Special Weapons and Tactics Unit, is trained and equipped to respond to dangerous situations like this one.
I was at the police academy getting ready to go for a run, and one of our supervisors told us to head out that way in our police cars and that he would give us more information as he got it regarding the situation.
9:28 a.m. The first SWAT unit gets ready for battle. Their vehicles are equipped with soft body armor and military weaponry, including a .223 caliber M16 and the MP5.
4 of us in our own separate black and whites drove in line from the police academy. Right away, you're thinking, as we're getting information about our suspects, the way they're dressed, body armor.
Phillips fires numerous rounds at Van Nuys traffic officer Martin Whitfield, who's located in the intersection near the bank's north door. A bullet suddenly shatters his right femur. Shrapnel pierces his arm and chest.
Martin Whitfield was extremely vulnerable because when one of the robbery suspects saw him down, he continued to try to finish him off.
Officer Whitfield drags himself 30 yards and finds cover behind a tree across the street from the bank.
A motor officer tried to draw the suspect's fire at him to enable Martin to get behind the tree or someone to help him, but Martin was bleeding out so fast, he was losing consciousness and was delusional.
Paramedics and the fire department desperately want to reach the wounded, but the relentless bursts of gunfire impede their entry. The only thing they can do is find cover and wait for SWAT.
The one statement that no police officer likes to hear, that we have an officer down. I mean, that by itself, your heart falls into your stomach to hear that.
Outside the bank, the 2 gunmen continue to fire on police. Officer James Zaborovan has potentially lethal wounds in his lower back. He takes cover behind parked vehicles along with Detective John Krulak, who's wounded in the right ankle.
When I was shot, I wasn't going to lay there and resign myself to death. I was going to fight. And that's what I did. So along with that and adrenaline, it kept me going. Detective Krulak said, if you're able to run, we need to get out of here. We're not going to survive if we stay here. He placed his arm on my shoulder and kind of gave me a nudge in the direction of the strip mall. So I started running with Detective Krulak right behind me.
I saw the doors to the dentist office. Both doors were shattered. I said, when we get to the glass, don't stop, go through it.
Dentist Jorge Montez watches the horrifying spectacle from his second-floor office, located directly across the street from the bank. Now the dentist hears screams outside his door.
Zaborovan says, help me, I've been shot. The fear in his face was so horrible, and I'm telling him, I can't find where you're hit, where you hit. And that's how he told me on the lower back. It was like a 7-inch gash, 2 inches wide, and there's just blood coming out of there. He's squirming, he's still trying to call for backup. I knew he was in a lot of pain. 2 of the bullets came in and out, but one of them went in and there was no exit sign of anywhere, and that's the one that scared me the most. I didn't know if that bullet had gone into his liver and his kidneys and his lungs. I had no idea. That's where I was praying so much. Help me help this person so that he wouldn't die in my office.
While Dr. Montez treats Officer Zaborovan, Detective Krulak maintains a tactical mindset.
My concern was they saw us go into that building, so I wanted to make sure that I had that door covered.
Krulak was saying that this shrapnel in his leg was sticking out and it was burning. He wanted me to take it out. I said, I can't take it out because I don't know if it's in your bone marrow, if it's crossing an artery or a vein. I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to stop the bleeding.
As we laid up in the dentist office, my primary thought was for my partner, for Stuart. In the academy, you're trained, you do not separate from your partner.
Officer Zaborovan's partner, Stuart Guy, attempts to find better cover in a commercial parking lot directly across the street from the bank. While darting to another vehicle, a bullet strikes his right forearm and another shatters his right femur. Officer Guy uses his gun belt as a tourniquet to stop the bleeding. His injuries are grave. Detective Tracy Angelis, who received graze wounds on her stomach and buttocks, reassures Officer Guy that help is on the way.
The radio transmissions coming out, there's officers needing help. Time and time again it was, I'm hit, I've been hit. We just couldn't stay there and keep listening to this.
Detectives and officers take cover behind a cinder block wall at the back of the bank. They fire at crazed gunman Phillips, drawing his attention away from the police, positioned on the bank's north and west side.
And thinking that we would then have a chance to confront the suspects, just began to do so when Phillips opened up with the AK-47 and the rounds went through that wall like it was butter. The chunks of the wall stuck in my face, stuck in my chest.
All officers stay down. One suspect is still firing at officers in the rear of the bank.
While sorting out where the injured are located, dispatch realizes that one of the officers, Martin Whitfield, is critically wounded and still dangerously exposed near a tree across the street from the bank.
9089, stand by.
He was losing consciousness. We needed to get help to him.
9089, come in.
And I was talking to everyone else who needed to know where he was, what was going on around him, how they were going to get in to get him help.
We have an officer down Victory west of Laurel Canyon. He needs help. Code 3, he is passing out. 9837, can you respond to 9L89, the 6600 block of Laurel Canyon?
Van Nuys officers Todd Schmitz and his partner Anthony Kabunik respond to the call. They will make a gutsy move. They will enter the line of fire to save a downed officer. Approximately 9:30 a.m., two violent bank robbers, Larry Phillips and Emil Matasarantu, have already injured almost a dozen police officers and several citizens outside the Bank of America in North Hollywood, California.
It was a war. It was a battle. This was 45 minutes of ongoing automatic weapon fire. Casualties coming, one after the other.
Police dispatch calls for more units. The number of police swells to over 350. But law enforcement can't terminate the standoff. At 9:35 a.m., Matasarantu abandons the money bag and sits inside the getaway vehicle.
I think they dropped the money because this was the first time they had been heavily engaged by anybody shooting back at them.
One wants to leave and the other one's having too good of a time shooting, or maybe he tactically believes he needs to shoot some more before he tries to get away.
Phillips even shoots at police and news helicopters. At one point, Phillips retrieves an H&K 91 assault rifle with .308 caliber rounds, even more deadly than the AK-47.
If somebody has a shot, take it. Suspect dead.
While police fire deflects the robbers' attention, Van Nuys officers Todd Schmitz and Anthony Kabunik attempt to rescue wounded officer Martin Whitfield. But as they enter the strike zone, they discover Officer Stuart Guy pinned down in the parking lot.
There's Anthony Kabunik and Todd Schmitz lift Stuart into the back of the police car and backed out of that parking lot as fast as they could. Without regard for their own safety, those two officers basically braved the gunfire to find downed officers.
Officer Schmitz and Kabunik then hear a distressing call from the dentist's office. They drive back through the kill zone to rescue Officer Zaborovan and Detective Krulak.
I remember, laying face down on the gurney in the back of the ambulance, screaming in pain. There was one bullet that lodged right at my hip bone. That bullet was surgically removed, and then I received roughly 70 or 80 stitches to sew up the wounds. Not at one point did I believe that I was going to die.
Officer Martin Whitfield, who's still pinned down behind a tree, is clinging to life.
999, hang in there. 9837 is almost there.
999, thank you. Thank you for talking.
So I had resigned myself to the fact that there were people that were dead. We didn't know about it, and we would just do the best we could with what was left.
The police grow desperate.
Being notified, officers are looking for gun stores now.
We need long guns. We need to defeat the threat. And some of our gang officers and our detectives went to BNB Guns Code 3.
One officer is at a gun store getting several AR-15s for the unit.
The cops borrow several assault rifles with .223 caliber ammo. But by the time they're deployed, the first SWAT unit arrives.
Our supervisor got on the air and told us not to deploy our MP5, which is a 9mm round, which their body armor would defeat, but to deploy our assault rifles, which is a .223, which their body armor would not defeat.
9:48 a.m. The four-man SWAT unit drives to the south side of the bank. They will use a covert strategy to apprehend the suspects. But first, they want to rescue the wounded from the kill zone. One of the SWAT officers jumps out and helps police commandeer an armored truck.
Somehow communicated with the driver, we need your truck, and he called into his headquarters. And apparently they were watching the shootout on television as it was being broadcast and said, yeah, if they want to use it, let them use it.
Where are the officers down? We have an armored car here. Tell me where the officers are. Send an armored car to Laurel Canyon, Archwood, north of Archwood, 30 yards on Laurel Canyon.
The armored truck transports police into the death zone to search for Officer Martin Whitfield, who's been bleeding for over 30 minutes. He's not responding.
989, 9837 is almost there. Hang in there. 989, 989, come in.
9:53 a.m. Police pour out of the armored truck and rescue Officer Martin Whitfield, who's barely conscious. He's transported to the hospital for surgery on his fractured leg and other wounds. Whitfield will survive. While the armored truck rescues victims, the gunmen are fleeing the bank's north parking lot. Phillips continues to fire rounds while he walks alongside the slowly moving getaway car driven by Mataseranu.
I'm going to guess is that one said get in the car and the other one said no, I'll provide cover fire while you drive the car down the street.
It was like, oh my God. It's not ending. It won't stop. It won't end.
The thing that scared me the most was that these two guys, who were clearly the worst people I had ever dealt with, the most dangerous, the most violent, were going to get away.
Roger, at Laurel Canyon.
The suspect is in the vehicle and is not coming out. He may be hit. The other suspect is walking on the inside of the vehicle. He's taking the vehicle. Everybody down.
Everybody down, shots are being fired. One suspect is possibly injured inside the vehicle and one is outside the white vehicle to the rear of the bank.
Phillips appears unfazed as officers shoot out the tires on the getaway car.
We've got one suspect on foot. We've got one suspect driving the white vehicle.
Mataseranu continues to drive, while Phillips ducks behind a tractor trailer.
The suspect on foot is behind a long truck trailer rig.
We left the backyard and we headed up the street to cut them off. I was met by Officer Caparelli, who was running away from the corner and shooting back behind him. He ran by me. I said, "What are you shooting at?" He said, "There's another one. He's under that truck."
I don't remember exactly what I told him, but that's At that last few moments when Larry Phillips was walking towards us, I said, this is it. I'm going to feel him hit me. I'm going to go down right here. And the second I turned, there was actually a fire hydrant right to my left. And I just jumped over the hydrant and I ran across the street.
The cold-blooded killer fires his AK-47, but the weapon jams. Police call it a stovepipe jam.
A stovepipe is a very common malfunction, and it's where the empty shell casing doesn't completely eject and is just hanging there like a stovepipe. To clear it, you just need to hit that thing, and the gun's ready to operate.
But instead of clearing it, Phillips abandons his jammed AK-47 and pulls out his 9mm handgun. The homicidal maniac now engages officers at the corner of Archwood and Agnes.
Here's Larry Phillips now with a handgun walking toward me. We engaged each other again.
When he came into view, the first thing I realized is he's got a handgun just like mine. That made me feel very relaxed, that now it's even, and I returned fire.
Officers fire at Phillips. One round strikes his hand. He drops his gun. Then he picks it up, points it under his chin, and squeezes the trigger. At the same moment, a police bullet rips through his shoulder and severs his spine.
Do I wonder if any of my bullets hit him? Well, we know that something knocked the gun out of his hand. Could it have been one of my bullets? I like to think so.
Did Phillips kill himself or accidentally pull the trigger?
Larry Phillips had made the comment that he would never be taken alive. He lived up to what he said.
I don't believe he was giving up. I believe that he was trying to reload that weapon one-handed.
I think he accidentally pulled the trigger. I think he wanted to continue to fire, and he would take as many cops with him as he could.
9:53 a.m. One gunman is eliminated. The other is still on the run. 9:53 a.m., North Hollywood, California. A vicious bank robbery and shootout have taken a dramatic turn. Approximately 10 police and 7 civilians are injured. And now, one of the shooters, Larry Phillips, is dead. He shot himself under the chin, while a police bullet simultaneously severed his spine.
I think the defining moment is when Larry Phillips went down. I think at that point, we knew that we had the upper hand.
The second suspect, Emil Matasareanu, still flees down a residential street. He suddenly exits the passenger side and blasts the area with automatic fire.
Be advised, the suspect in the white vehicle is at lamp. He's out of the vehicle, he's shooting at civilians.
The suspect is out of the vehicle at lamp shooting at civilians.
Matasareanu then hobbles around to the driver's side. Police now believe he has been hit in the lower leg.
The suspect is back in the white vehicle. He is now moving slowly eastbound between lamp and back.
It was literally impossible to block every side street simply because of the sheer numbers of side streets and people that live in the area.
Matasareanu suddenly fires through his windshield and strikes an oncoming Jeep pickup truck. The driver of the pickup abandons his vehicle. Matasareanu pulls up and proceeds to retrieve more weapons and ammo from his trunk.
The suspect is now in a brown truck westbound Archwood.
Matasareanu now attempts to hijack the pickup, but the driver took the keys with him. Officers wave the SWAT unit down the street. They think they're going to rescue someone injured. Instead, they pull up within feet of the suspect. Matasareanu abandons the hijacked truck and fires at SWAT from the hood of his getaway car.
More shots are being fired, shots are being fired.
SWAT officers pummel rounds under 3 vehicles toward Matasareanu's feet. The suspect returns fire at close range, using a fully automatic M16 rifle.
Be advised, the suspect is prone out. He may be shooting underneath the vehicle towards officers.
The suspect is prone down and possibly shooting at the officers from under the vehicle.
And looking back at it, I believe we had fired maybe 15, 16 rounds apiece.
After almost 2 minutes of intense fire, Matasarantu drops his weapon. The SWAT unit carefully draws near the suspect. At 9:59 a.m., Emil Matasarantu is handcuffed. The nearly 45-minute ordeal is over.
When the shooting stopped and we ran up to Matasarantu, he was swearing at us. He was angry. He didn't seem to be in any pain. He just seemed to be real angry that he had lost.
Matasarantu will die before paramedics can reach him.
We did request for paramedics to respond to our location, but we definitely didn't want to just let somebody lay there and die just because they are a suspect. We also have to make sure that that area is safe. For paramedics, they will not go into what they call a hot area as long as there is a possible armed suspect that is still outstanding.
But the area is still a hot zone. Police receive information that a third gunman is at large and possibly holding hostages in the bank.
We topped our magazines off, reloaded our weapons, and went back to the bank to rescue those 30 people that were still in the bank.
Several SWAT units storm the bank. They discover the suspects had locked the 30 employees and customers inside the vault.
I'm very surprised not only they didn't kill anybody in the bank, but I'm very surprised that they didn't kill anybody during that whole incident.
The area is locked down until almost midnight. Finally, over 14 hours after the gun battle had begun, the search for a third gunman is terminated.
It's our opinion now that there was only these two suspects. They made nobody privy to their activities, not even their wives.
In the end, the two gunmen fired over 1,100 rounds of ammo. Police and SWAT fired over 650 rounds. 10 police officers and 7 civilians were injured. There were only 2 fatalities. Gunman Larry Phillips was shot 11 times, including a self-inflicted wound to the chin. His partner, Emil Matasarantu, was shot 29 times.
You know, death is never a good thing, but I felt great when I knew that they had shot them. I was sad that they died, though, because they should have been prosecuted. They should have stood trial for what they did.
Many of the officers received medals of valor for their heroism. Yet the honors and accolades cannot strip away the physical and emotional pain that many endure to this day.
I have 2 or 3 herniated discs in my back with nerve pain running down my legs because of the injuries I received that day.
There were sleepless nights going over and over in your mind. Why did that gun jam? What if it didn't? You know, it takes a toll.
After this incident, I made up my mind that it was a good time for me to retire.
As a result of the North Hollywood shootout, some officers now are trained to carry M16 assault rifles. Police want to end the shootout before it ever begins.
I can guarantee you, if I was thrust into this situation tomorrow, I wouldn't have changed any of the things that I would have done. Hey, if you're shot, you keep fighting. You find the will to survive.
Am I afraid now that it could happen again? I believe that it will, because crime doesn't stop. It just changes.